Hi guys, it's Karen with Love Your Land, and today I'm going to be transplanting some tomatoes. No, this is not a tomato, it's a pepper. But before we do it, and before I do the demo, I want to really cover some important points, sort of like when you're in school and they give you the lecture first before they let you go do the actual lab. It's kind of like that because when you're handling pepper seedlings, for example, you'll notice, if you've done it before, you know, or if you're just doing it for the first time this time, you'll notice that the stem on a pepper plant is almost woody, and that's really the ideal time to be transplanting them if they aren't getting too root bound in their little pot. So, but what that means is that they're way more sturdy than a tomato seedling. I haven't even taken my tomato seedling that I'm going to transplant out of the dome yet because I don't want it to just like lay around all exposed. I'm going to do that when I get you in close here, but I wanted to talk about the difference between transplanting a pepper plant versus transplanting a tomato plant or seedling. And the reason I'm pointing this out is that I feel sort of like I'm doing a duplicate video of last week, or I feel like you might think that, but I'm not at all. Because the way you saw me handle this pepper plant on camera last week is nothing like I'm going to be handling that tomato seedling when it gets over here. And I wasn't going to tell you guys this. I kind of went back and forth with it. It's kind of a hard thing to even tell you, but I can't even believe this happened. So last Saturday I was in a rush, and I kept, the few days before I kept looking over at the grow space in my domes. I have two of them. There were like a jungle in there with tomato seedlings. They were just so like they were getting smashed from the top, and I really needed to transplant them. So, but I couldn't find the time to do it. Between work, shooting 2 videos every week, whatever, that's suffering. So I finally found time on Saturday, but I only had this tiny little window, and then I had to like rush and do that, and then rush and go get ready and leave and stuff. So I rushed, and I had a lot to do. A lot of tomato seedlings, and I didn't even finish, thank God, because I hurt them. I did. When you're handling tomato seedlings, those roots are so delicate and the stems are so delicate. I'm not trying to make anybody paranoid here. I just want to make this point really, really well because I don't want you to do what I did. And I also am telling you because I could leave the story out, but I'm telling you because for those of you out there that are new, if this happens, hopefully it won't after you see this and you see the proper way to handle your seedlings. But if it's happened in the past or it happens in the future at some point, just know that it can happen to anybody. It happened to me, and I absolutely know better. I know exactly how to handle those seedlings, but I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I would have done that, and I've actually lost quite a few. A lot of them are still struggling to come back. A lot of them not come back, but get over the transplant shock. And quite a few of them have. I would say at least half of them are definitely going to make it out of this situation here, this violent tragedy. But I have already pulled out. I mean, there comes a point where you're like, you got to give up. I mean, you got to let them go. When they're this big and they're all shriveled up and they're just like laying there, it's time. So, in fact, this pot had 2 in there, and I just pulled them out this morning, and they're in my trash compactor. It's pretty sad, actually. And it's frustrating for me because, again, I totally know better. It can happen to anybody. So, I guess the moral of the story is, number 1, understand, if you're new to this, understand that you have to be so delicate with tomato seedlings in that first transplant. Well, anytime, but especially in that first transplant because they're just so delicate. They don't have a woody stem at all. It's this little like green sort of embryonic looking see-through thing, and the roots, the little root hairs and everything, if any of that gets damaged, your plant's probably going to be a goner. So number 1, be super duper duper careful, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And also, if you blow it, if you make a mistake, if you transplant some tomato seedlings and some die, I'm not anticipating that'll happen, but if it happens, just know you're not alone. Everybody's done it at some point, and if they tell you they haven't, they're full of baloney. Something that they've transplanted has died. So again, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you, but not if you're careful. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and break here, and I'm going to go ahead and pick out the seedling or seedlings that I want to transplant, and then I'm going to bring you up close and show you the right way to do it. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so what I'm going to be transplanting today is this Cherokee Purple. There's 2 of them in here, and I am going to transplant them together. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. You can have yours separate, but I haven't decided actually if I'm going to transplant these again into their own pots when they get a little bit bigger. I may, but those of you who've been watching me for a while, you know that I actually do plant multiples together when it comes to tomatoes because of our weather here. So in this case, the jury's still out, I don't know. But the first thing you're going to want to do when you're going to transplant your tomato seedlings is understand where you're going to be burying them down to. You want to bury a tomato stem all the way to this point, all the way to this first top canopy of leaves, because, as I've said a million times, anywhere this stem is buried under soil, it's going to grow roots off of it. So you're going to end up with a much stronger plant than if I were to keep this in this pot, just like, you know, or plant it like this again in this pot with all of this exposed stem. So obviously I don't want to bury stems or leaves, so I'm going to go ahead and clip those off. I didn't mean I don't want to bury stems, I mean I don't want to bury leaves. That totally contradicted what I just said, so just to be clear, it's hard to do this and get it in the camera, sorry. So I'm just going to go through and snip off these little guys. You can actually just pinch them off with your fingers if you like, but just be careful. Okay, last one. There we go. So, to get these guys out of here. Now, you guys just stay put. Once again, I'm just going to put a few inches of soil or a couple of inches of soil in this pot, and I'm reusing the one that we had the casualties in. So just like with the peppers, this part's the same. I'm just going to put a little bit of soil in there, because the reason that I'm just putting a little bit of soil in there is that this plant is going to sit down deep in there. It's going to be kind of probably, yeah, well, I might be able to bury it all the way. My point is that if any of this, if this was shorter and it sat down low in here, I would only fill it up, you know, up to that top rung of stems. And then as the plant grew up, I would be filling the soil up along these stems all along the way. So in this case, I think it's going to end up being, I have too much in there. I think it's going to end up being pretty much right down, or right to the soil, to the top of the pot, but we'll see. So very, very, very carefully, do not pinch the stems, do not squeeze the stems in any way. Put your hand over the pot and put your fingers through here. See how I'm not even hardly, I mean, I'm kind of touching the stem here, but that's it. Turn your pot upside down over your pot, other pot. Gently squeeze out your little plant. Observe the root system, appreciate it, and then gently set it into your pot. I can do this. Yes, I can. Okay, gently set it in there and hold it up by the leaves, not the stem. That's very important. I said this last year, if a leaf breaks, it'll grow back. It's not a big deal. If a stem breaks, your plant is dead. So even when I'm putting the soil in here, I'm trying to not bonk the roots with it. I mean the stems and the roots, just sort of gently putting it in there. Just trying to think of a better word, and I can't think of one. And I'm also not really pressing down. I'm just sort of letting it be in there sort of loose. I want to get on this side of it, but I don't want to bonk the stem, so I'm being careful. Oh, you know what's in there? Look is that the saddest thing you've ever seen on camera in your life? Can you see this? Yeah. That is one of the transplants that didn't make it that I guess fell into my soil bin. Oh, so sad. I can't even believe that happened. Okay, now once they're in there a little bit, you can I'm if I can hold this up. I'm kind of going like this. You see in there? I'm not separating them, but I'm kind of moving them away from each other a little bit so they're have a little distance. And don't worry if your tomato plant's not like dead center in the middle of the pot. It's not a big deal, especially if you're planning on transplanting these again. And especially since these are going outside eventually. So it's not like they're going to live in here forever. I'm so glad. I'm so grateful that I didn't have that much time Saturday and wasn't able to, like, you know, kill all of my plants in one fell swoop. That would have really devastated me. I've never done this before. I have never, and I'm not full of baloney, I have never killed a tomato seedling from transplanting it. Ever. So, other things, but not a tomato seedling, because they're, you know, they're gold to me, and I'm always really careful. Okay, I'll stop talking about it. Sorry. I don't want you guys to make the same mistake, so I'm kind of going on and on about it. But anyway, so I'm filling this little pot up, or this big pot. Actually, this is what is it? It's a 6-inch pot. I thought it was bigger. Anyway, I'm filling it all the way up so that this stem is totally buried under soil. It's not a waste of soil, trust me. Your roots will benefit from this. Your stems, your whole plant will benefit from it because it's, again, the stem, everywhere the stem is buried, it's going to grow roots off of it. Okay? So that is the proper way to transplant a tomato seedling. And by the way, these are Cherokee Purples. I started on January 26th. Okay, I did it. It's much more gentle this time. That was actually unnerving to do on camera. I just had to keep reminding myself, this isn't live. This isn't live. If you blow it, you can reshoot it. So obviously I have a lot of props over there. Anyway, that's the proper way to handle a tomato seedling. You can't be too careful. You really can't. And then the final step after you transplant anything is to water it in really well. And I goofed up. I already watered this off camera, but I think you guys know how to water a plant. I will say, make sure you water all the way around, not just where the root ball is. Make sure you get the roots too, but all the way around so that eventually the roots are going to start seeking out that water. And it's going to make them, you know, bigger, longer, stronger, healthier plant. And again, I did water the seedling. I forgot to mention that too. I did water the seedling before I transplanted, well, them, not it. I did water this, and I also pre-moistened my soil. But it wasn't as, it still needed some more water. So I've gone ahead and done that. And then last reminder, always put your indoor transplants out of direct sunlight, away from the lights, for a day or two. After a day, just observe them. If they look still like this, then they haven't gone through any shock. You can go ahead and put them under the lights. If they look a little sad still, then leave them out of the light for another day, and they'll probably be just fine. I've never had them take more than a day or two. Until now. So I'm going to put him over here, him, and move on with transplanting some more the proper way. So if you have any questions, post a comment below, go over to Facebook at the Love Your Land page and ask me there, and I will answer you, okay? I'll talk to you soon. Bye.